Nobody cares about you. That's not an insult. It's not a joke. It's the raw, uncomfortable truth you've spent most of your life trying to avoid. People don't think about you the way you think about them. They're not watching. They're not judging. They're barely noticing, because they're too busy drowning in their own lives, their own problems, their own pain. And in a world addicted to performance and validation, that truth feels like a slap in the face. This is The Still Observer, the channel where we don't sell you illusions. We reveal the truth behind your pain, strip away the lies society feeds you, and explore the dark corners of philosophy to find something real. If you're tired of shallow advice and sugar-coated nonsense, hit that subscribe button. This space is for thinkers, wanderers, and anyone who's ever looked at the world and felt like something's off. So, here's the question. If nobody truly cares about you, what does that mean? What happens to your relationships, your ambitions, your self-worth, if the attention you crave was never really there in the first place? What if your whole identity has been built on a lie? Today, we turn to Arthur Schopenhauer, the bleakest, most brutally honest philosopher in history. A man who looked humanity in the eye and said, "We are not noble, we are not kind. We are desperate creatures clawing through life for ourselves." He saw the self-interest in every kind gesture, the hidden motives behind every smile, and somehow he found a kind of peace in that chaos. Let's tear away the mask. Let's confront the terrifying idea that you're not the center of anyone's world, and why that realization might just be your key to freedom. From the moment we're born, we're trained to believe that other people care about us. Parents smile, teachers praise, and friends show up on birthdays. It feels like the world is watching, like your presence actually matters. And maybe, in some small ways, it does, but that feeling is misleading. Because deep down, much of the care we receive isn't about us at all, it's about them. Arthur Schopenhauer had no illusions about this. In his eyes, most people are only kind when it serves them. He believed that what we call caring is often just a disguise for personal gain, convenience, or the fear of being alone. Even love, in its romanticized form, is riddled with biological impulses and selfish motives. You think someone cares deeply about you, but often they care about what you do for them, the comfort, the validation, the distraction. We live under the illusion that being noticed means being valued. But attention isn't affection. It's often just curiosity or habit. Look closer. When you succeed, people cheer not because they care, but because your success either inspires them or threatens them. When you fail, they're not heartbroken. They're entertained or relieved it wasn't them. Think of how often you've replayed your own mistakes, anxieties, and fears. Now ask yourself how often you've obsessed over someone else's. The average person spends more time thinking about themselves in 1 hour than they will about you in an entire month. They don't lie awake wondering how you're doing. They lie awake worrying about their own rent, their own heartbreak, their own regrets. This is the lie of care. We confuse proximity with intimacy, attention with meaning, and politeness with love. Most people are in survival mode, just like you. Their empathy is conditional. Their kindness is calculated. Their time is precious, and you're not at the top of their list. And here's the twist. That might be the best thing that ever happened to you. Because when you realize no one is watching, you stop performing. You start choosing. Schopenhauer didn't share this to depress you. He offered it as a path to something real, a life not built on being seen, but on being true. Arthur Schopenhauer believed that at the root of every human action, behind every smile, every hug, every act of so-called kindness, there is one single force: will. Not willpower, but blind, endless, restless desire. He called it the will to live, and he believed it controlled everything. You don't love someone because you're selfless. You love them because they make your suffering bearable. They fill a void. They distract you from yourself. Think about how much of your life is driven by pain avoidance. You study to avoid failure. You work to avoid poverty. You socialize to avoid loneliness. Even your most generous acts, buying a gift, helping a friend, giving advice, carry the subtle scent of ego. You want to feel good. You want to feel useful. You want to be seen as a good person. But Schopenhauer saw this for what it was: survival in disguise. He didn't romanticize humanity. He saw us as creatures of need, always hungry, always reaching, never satisfied. And worse, our suffering isn't just unfortunate, it's inevitable. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another takes its place. We don't rest, we don't reflect, we chase, we hustle, we ache. This is why, according to Schopenhauer, people don't truly care about others, because they're too busy managing their own endless loop of craving and discomfort. Even our sadness for others, our so-called compassion, is often a projection of our own pain. We cry at a funeral not just for the person lost, but because we imagine ourselves in that coffin. It's not selflessness, it's self-reference. Even morality, Schopenhauer argued, often disguises self-interest. We help not just to do good, but to feel good, to ease our conscience, to uphold our image. He wasn't saying humans are monsters. He was saying we're exhausted. And when you're exhausted, you don't have room to care deeply about someone else's world. Harsh? Maybe. But freeing? Absolutely. Because when you stop expecting people to rise above their nature, you stop being disappointed. You stop waiting to be rescued. You start observing the world without illusions. The truth isn't that people are bad. It's that they're overwhelmed. And so are you. And once you accept that, you can begin to focus on the only thing you truly control, yourself. It hits like a punch in the chest. You realize the world doesn't revolve around you. Nobody is waiting for your next move. Nobody is thinking about what you wore, what you said, or what you failed to do. And for a moment, that truth doesn't free you. It crushes you. The illusion breaks. You look around and everything feels hollow. The friendships that once felt deep now seem transactional. The compliments feel empty. The attention you once chased feels cheap. You start to wonder, was any of it ever real? This is the dark night of awareness. Schopenhauer never denied the pain of waking up. He knew that when you finally see the machinery behind human behavior, the motives, the masks, it can feel like the world loses color. You stop believing in fairy tales, and without that fantasy, life can feel cold, pointless, even cruel. You may feel angry at others for their selfishness, at yourself for being so blind, or worse, numb. You begin to see social interaction not as a connection, but as a performance, a dance of needs. Everyone wants something, everyone pretending. It's like stepping backstage after a beautiful show, only to find wires, sweat and stagehands shouting orders. You question the meaning of everything. What's the point of trying, of sharing, of building anything if it's all rooted in need, not love? And yet, this suffering is necessary. Schopenhauer believed that pain is the starting point of wisdom. Only by confronting the harshness of reality can we begin the work of creating something honest, something unshakable. So, yes, it hurts. It's supposed to, but it's also the doorway. The moment the false lights go out, you start to see what's real. This is the turning point. And from here, you don't have to go back. Once the pain fades, something else creeps in. Indifference. At first it feels numb. You don't care like you used to. People talk, but it doesn't hit. Their approval doesn't thrill you, and their rejection doesn't destroy you. You stop constantly wondering what they're thinking. You stop trying to please ghosts. But this isn't emptiness. This is power. Schopenhauer believed that indifference wasn't a flaw. It was freedom. He saw that most of our suffering comes not from what happens, but from what we expect. We expect people to love us selflessly. We expect validation, recognition, and empathy. And when those expectations die, so does the suffering they bring. Indifference isn't about hating the world. It's about not needing it to define you. You stop being manipulated by praise and silence. You stop measuring your worth through someone else's reaction. You become quieter, not because you're sad, but because you no longer need to prove anything. There's no performance, no pretending, just presence. And in that silence, there's space for thought, for clarity, for peace. Indifference also makes you stronger in relationships. When you don't need others to complete you, you connect with them from a place of strength, not desperation. You listen without trying to win. You love without trying to own. You stop chasing people who don't see you. You stop fighting for a seat at tables that were never built for you. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bleeding for care that was never there. You stop pouring yourself into people who only show up when it's convenient. Schopenhauer knew this kind of detachment didn't come easily. It takes pain, it takes unlearning. But once it sets in, it gives you armor, not to shut the world out, but to move through it without being crushed by it. Imagine waking up tomorrow and not obsessing over what others think. Imagine acting without overanalyzing, speaking without fear, and walking into a room without needing to be liked. You'd still care, but only about what's real. That's the power of indifference. It's not a wall, it's a filter. And when you stop needing everything, you become free to choose what matters. So if nobody truly cares, what's the point of relationships? This is where things get complicated, because even after the illusions fall, the need remains. We're still human. We still long to be seen, heard, and touched. And yet, once you realize how selfish most human interaction is, it becomes hard to believe in anything. Love feels conditional. Friendship feels circumstantial. You start to wonder if the connection is just mutual distraction. Schopenhauer didn't sugarcoat this. He believed that even love, especially romantic love, is nature's trick to ensure reproduction. Not some divine magic, but a biological trap. And yet he didn't say connection was impossible. He just believed most people never reach the depth required to make it real. Most relationships are built on shared delusions. You agree to play a role, they agree to play theirs. You perform affection, they return it. You manage expectations, they reciprocate. But once you stop performing, many of those bonds dissolve. Not because you're broken, but because the relationship wasn't real to begin with. Still, isolation isn't the end. It's the reset. It's the filter that shows you who stays when you stop pretending. It's the painful space where authenticity begins. Real connection, rare as it is, doesn't depend on illusions. It doesn't require you to be perfect or to make them feel whole. It begins when you stop needing someone and start respecting them, when you stop expecting salvation and start offering presence. You relate as equals, not as saviors or sources of validation. Yes, it's lonely to realize the truth, but it's even lonelier to live surrounded by people who only know your mask. You may lose relationships, but what remains will be real, and that's something worth keeping. When you finally stop expecting the world to care, something wild happens. You begin to define yourself. No longer shaped by the gaze of others, you start asking different questions. Not, do they like me? Or, am I enough? But what matters to me? Without the pressure to impress, you discover preferences, dreams, and values that were buried beneath your people-pleasing. You don't need applause to know you're growing. You don't need permission to make a change. This is where Schopenhauer's bleakness turns strangely beautiful. By accepting the loneliness of existence, he freed himself from its grip. He found that when you stop looking outward for validation, you can finally look inward for truth. You become a still observer of life. You see others not as threats or saviors, but simply as people, just as confused, just as afraid, just as busy surviving. And in that recognition, your anger fades, your envy quiets, your ego stops screaming. Freedom isn't found in control. It's found in detachment, not from life, but from illusions. You don't stop caring entirely. You stop needing to be cared about. That shift changes everything. You begin to act with integrity instead of strategy. You speak without polishing every sentence. You pursue goals that feel real to you, not ones designed to impress an invisible crowd. It's not easy. You'll still feel lonely. You'll still crave attention some days, but you'll no longer be addicted to it. You'll recognize the craving for what it is, a shadow, not a compass. And here's the surprise. In living this way, you start attracting people who see the real you, the ones who aren't there for performance, the ones who stay when you have nothing to offer but truth. You also become more compassionate, not less. Because now you understand that everyone is struggling quietly. You don't need them to perform for you either. You give space, and in doing so, you make room for real connection. That's what Schopenhauer ultimately points toward. Not happiness, but clarity. Not comfort, but inner strength. So yes, nobody cares about you in the way you hoped, but maybe that's not a curse. Maybe that's the beginning of your freedom. The day you stop waiting to be seen is the day you finally see yourself. You've been told your whole life that you matter because people care. But maybe you matter because you exist, because you choose, because even in a world full of noise and selfishness, you're capable of creating something honest. Schopenhauer didn't offer easy hope. He offered the hard truth. But within that truth is a kind of peace, because once you stop begging the world to care about you, you realize you never needed its permission to live meaningfully. You can think deeply, love carefully, and build quietly, even if nobody's watching. And in that space, free from performance, you might just find the realest version of yourself. Not the one you curated, not the one you sold, the one you buried trying to fit in. This is the still observer, where we turn painful truths into clarity. If this video spoke to something real in you, subscribe. We'll keep going deeper. We'll keep choosing truth over comfort. And we'll do it without pretending. Because the world may not care about you, but here you learn to stop needing it to.